Hi, I'm Randy Altman with Post Perspective. We're here with Michel Suissa from B&H. Hello, Michelle.
Hey, Randy.
So IBC is not happening this year, at least not in December. Maybe next year in September, we'll see. But we're still seeing some companies introducing technology. We're here to talk about trends. So, what have you seen so far? What do you expect to see in terms of technology?
There are a number of things. I think I think it's in multiple fronts. I think the arrival of new equipment per se, which is the introduction of hardware, whether it's on the acquisition, post streaming, or broadcast side. I think that will continue. But I think what we're also seeing is um, trends in the type of productions that people are putting together. I think that's changing. Um, and I think that's probably one of the most significant aspects of what we're seeing as developments in our industry is the advent of virtual production, which was really sort of born out of the fact that we all went into a quarantine, with COVID, and there had to be a way, to limit travel, to limit density in the crew, to minimize the risk of proximity, for transmission. So I think it's accelerated a number of applications that I've seen a tremendous amount of success, or at least um, level of adoption has sort of grown tremendously for anything that is um, working over the cloud, number one, and number two, um, the introduction of LED volumes as a main environment for a number of applications. Um, so that leads to, some of the hardware components that we see coming into the market. And I think computer technology is one of them. I think there are a number of our partners who are very well placed in this space to actually provide media server, rendering, real-time applications, for the integration into virtual production. And then we're also seeing people raise the bar on the acquisition side, and I think it's clear that um, the the digital cinema world has had an incredible level of interest for virtual production. I think that's due to the inevitable reference to the Mandalorian. I think, whoever has not heard the Mandalorian has been really living beyond quarantine, because it's been on everyone's mouth. But I think it's not necessarily the way they've done it, but the approach, I think conceptually, that we're seeing it grow into a number of different markets. And they're not just the media and entertainment market. And that's where we're trying to be really active is smaller environments, environments that happen in the corporate world or in the house of worship or in the educational institutional side. I think that's really important to offer all these market verticals the ability to use that same technology because it has limitless potential. Um, so that's really on the workflow side. I think, we've also seen the advent of the inclusion of cloud workflows. I think um, it is certainly, not a new trend, but it's a trend that continues to gain. And I think hopefully, once access to very high-speed broadband connections, that are more affordable for people who will need to have, a larger pipe, to the internet, will certainly make the expansion of working to the cloud a lot more viable, for small and medium uh, uh, organizations that do not necessarily have, the financial wherewithal or the capital to invest into, you know, getting a very, very fast access to the internet. Because I think it's one of the components that's really interesting is the infrastructure does exist, but it's still expensive to actually connect and do things in a way that is sort of feasible from a timeline perspective. So these are two things we've seen. Of course, there are new advents of machine learning and AI that continues to be sort of almost completely prevalent and ubiquitous into some of the things that we do. We don't sometimes not even pay attention, to how it's integrated. But I think that's part of the everyday life in our industry. Um, and I would say because we're at heart, we're a camera company. We love cameras, and we love acquisition. So we have to say that we've seen a number of really, really interesting developments in the world of acquisition. Um, Venice 2, 8K and 6K, or really incredible additions to the landscape. Red, with the tremendous success of the Komodo and the V Raptor, I think have also made an third level entrance, if we want to make a reference to DSMC3. Um, and on the optic side, I think a lot of glass that's on the market for pretty much every single budget. And anybody who says, "Oh, I can't create good content," because you're not looking carefully enough. There are options for pretty much every budget. So I think that's in a nutshell. I think that's sort of the landscape the way we see it. Um, we're relatively optimistic. We're respectful of the struggles that people go through because of COVID, but we're very, very hopeful that the level of production activity we're seeing in the marketplace is tremendous. I think it's even much higher than pre-pandemic levels. So that is really encouraging.
Fantastic. Well, it's a lot to talk about, and I do understand your trickle down theory with the cloud workflows. It will eventually get to the smaller companies and maybe even the individual people that are working and they're shooting, they're editing, they're doing a little bit of everything. Uh, Going forward for the next 12 months, what do you see? What can we expect?
I think a continuation of what we've seen as the trends. I think there is such a tremendous demand for consumption of new content that I think it won't stop. I think um, the content that was consumed in theaters or in front of our large screen TVs is now migrated to pretty much every single device that can be a delivery device, right? So consumption is tremendous, and we see the number of deliverables that are being asked by advertisers or content creators to the delivery platforms is just massive. It used to be you had to deliver 5 final products. Now it's 100, right? So I think that that really keeps a lot of us busy. I think it's really I think the acceptance of the remote workflows, I think, is also given us um, a new look into the paradigm that makes people working from home or away from a central office as efficient as if they were in the office. And I think that's really sort of a sort of intellectual revolution where you had to, get sort of accustomed to the idea that being in an office or being in a central location is not necessarily essential. I think that's also um, a tremendous open door to creativity. Because people who wouldn't have access to being part of a team, for example, now can. So, I think that's the talent pool is really how this industry continues to be relevant. So I think all these developments really have one aspect that's really common is a better, greater, easier access to a talent pool.